Well, good morning. Let me try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Let me thank the distinguished pastor and the First Lady of the church for welcoming us so warmly today and hosting us. Greatly appreciated and enjoyed our conversation, Dr. Christopher Michael Jones. This church has been a cornerstone of Hillside faith for more than 100 years, so we celebrate in that. Let me thank the mayor for her steady leadership here in Hillside, incredibly important. We were talking before, and I've said many times that being mayor, maybe outside of being president, is the toughest job in America. Everybody knows the mayor, everybody's got something to say, and the mayor is expected to respond. So, Mayor, thank you for your leadership. I appreciate some of our legislators being here, Assemblyman Atkins, State Senator Joe Cryan, for being with us today, being such strong champions for Union County families, and lastly, Ms. Crystal Orr and Mrs. Vivian Cox-Fraser, who you'll hear from, two extraordinary women who are here representing the urban leagues, and I also appreciate the presence of Philip Shavana of the Essex-Newark Legal Services Program. The work that you all do makes sure that equal opportunity and equal justice in the law aren't concepts that we talk about, but rather a reality that we can extend to our fellow brothers and sisters in New Jersey. I must say it's an honor to be here outside of this historic church as we come together in support of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination to the United States Supreme Court. As you all know, my dear friend and partner in the United States Senate, Senator Cory Booker, would have loved to be with us on the cusp of making history. 2 weeks ago at her confirmation hearing, Judge Jackson saw firsthand what I have been fortunate to see every day over the past several years. And that is, there is truly no one better to have as a supporter in your corner than Senator Cory Booker. There's no better ally than a man who will declare before a national television audience, "You have earned this spot. You are worthy. You are a great American."
Yes.
Now, Senator Booker's presence on the Senate Judiciary Committee is a blessing for our nation, but unfortunately, that blessing means that he has to be in Washington right now before I get there. I don't sit on the Judiciary Committee, he does, preparing to vote Judge Jackson out of the committee so we can confirm her on the Senate floor later this week. Now, make no mistake, this is a good week for our country. This week, for the first time in our nation's history, the United States Senate will elevate an incredibly qualified African American woman to the United States Supreme Court. We will accomplish what has never been done, and in doing so, bear witness in real time to the bending of the moral arc of the universe towards justice. With our vote this week, the Senate will take an important step towards realizing the promise of America, that every child, regardless of whether they are born in North Jersey or South Florida, regardless of their race or ethnicity, can rise to the highest of their potential. We will cement our fundamental belief that here in America we are not bound by economic status or our station in life. Rather, if we work hard and reach for the stars, we can in fact make our ancestors' wildest dreams come true.
That's right.
My friends, I submit to you that the story of Judge Jackson is the story of our country,
Yeah.
the story of humble roots and tireless work ethic. It is the story of beating odds, breaking molds, and proving naysayers wrong. Born Ketanji Oyika, I got it right, Oyika Brown, soon to be Justice Jackson, was raised by two public school educators in Miami. When she was young, her parents would tell her stories, how they both attended segregated public schools in the Jim Crow South, how they were the first in their families to go to college, how they graduated from historically black colleges and universities, eventually rising through the ranks to serve as a principal and as the chief attorney for the Miami-Dade County Schools. Like her parents, Judge Jackson has lived a life in the mold of the great strivers in our history. Given all that her family has accomplished, it's hard to believe that racial segregation was the law of the land only a few short years before she was born. In fact, with her story of upward mobility, one could easily be led to believe that it was predestined for Judge Jackson. But to hear it directly from her, as I did when she and I met last week, one realizes that in fact, none of it was destiny. Simply put, it was the grit of a young woman from Miami and the love of her family who surrounded her that made her story possible. How many of us here can relate to that?
That's right.
How many of us can see ourselves, our struggles, our stories reflected in the extraordinary story of Judge Jackson and her parents? I can speak for myself, but as the son of Cuban refugees who grew up in a tenement in Union City, I would not be here today without the self-worth I learned from my mother. I could not stand here before you today representing New Jersey as one of 100 senators in a country of over 330 million, as we are poised to take this latest step in our 246-year struggle for a more perfect union. The task, therefore, remains. We must etch this step into stone, confirm Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the court, and prove to women and girls everywhere that if they work hard and reach for the stars, they too can be one of the 9 guardians entrusted by the Constitution to ensure equal justice under law for all people. That's what we're going to do this week. Last week when I sat down with Judge Jackson to discuss her nomination, I was struck by 3 things. Her encyclopedic knowledge of the law, her fierce devotion to ensuring equal justice under it, and lastly, her lived experience as a woman who has always had to earn everything that she has accomplished. When Judge Jackson takes her place among her fellow justices, she will be tasked with handing down decisions that affect the lives of everyone in our nation. She will hear cases on the right to organize that affect union workers throughout the nation and every member of SEIU 32BJ. She will interpret our immigration laws that affect the working class communities that Make the Road supports. She will rule on voting rights that are integral to the mission of the Urban League. Judge Jackson will be a needed voice on the Supreme Court when it takes up cases on voting rights, reproductive freedom, campaign finance, and civil liberties. Why? Because she just hasn't studied each of these issues in a vacuum. She hasn't stayed in an ivory tower, disconnected from the ways the law is used and misused in our country. Judge Jackson is a nominee who belongs on the highest court in the land because she knows what the law can do, what it can limit, and what it can unlock. Her exceptional credentials and even-handed record leave no reason to oppose the nomination of one of the brightest legal minds in our country. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, she is superbly qualified to interpret the Constitution and hear cases on their merit. She has more experience as a trial court judge than any sitting justice on the Supreme Court of the United States. More trial court experience. And once confirmed, Judge Jackson will be the second justice ever to have experience at all 3 levels of our federal judiciary. The first, a legal trailblazer in her own right, was my friend Justice Sonia Sotomayor. It is why interesting that the 2 Supreme Court justices, one there and one to be, who have that type of experience compared to all of their brethren, are women of color. It is why it is only fitting that I've thought about the parallels between this historic nomination and the historic nomination for Justice Sotomayor. Back then in 2009, I said, with reference to Justice Sotomayor, when she takes her seat on the United States Supreme Court, We will only need to look at the portrait of the justices to see how far we've come as a nation, who we really are as a people, and what our founders intended for us to be. Those words have never rung more true now. So to all who rejoice in what is to come, who eagerly await the moment when Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson places her hand on the Bible and takes her solemn oath of office, I submit the following. More than ever before, the newest portrait of our 9 Supreme Court justices will more clearly reflect who we are as a nation, what we stand for as a fair, just, and hopeful people. And we prepare to extend the judicial nomination of all judicial nominations to Judge Jackson. The full realization of that ideal is closer than it has ever been. I know this because I've lived it, as Judge Jackson has lived it, and I feel as so many others in this country have felt it. I'll end, as I often do, with a personal note about the 3 angels in my own life, my granddaughters, Evangelina, Ophelia, and Olivia. Granted, they're still young, and my oldest is barely out of pre-K. But when I go to the floor later this week, I will be filled with joy and hope. Why? Because in my heart, I will know that thanks to pioneers like Sonia Sotomayor and now Ketanji Brown Jackson, there isn't a single thing they can't accomplish. Their nominations, this nomination means so much more for me because of what it will mean to them. And so in closing, let us take on their dreams as our dreams. Let every child in America look at their parents the way that Judge Jackson's daughter looked at her during her confirmation hearing. Let us take up the torch for our forefathers, shatter the barriers that stand in the way of what is possible, and declare with one voice, it is time to confirm Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court of the United States. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Crystal Orr, the President and CEO of the Urban League of Union County. Ms. Orr.